The Long Man Who Waits. Part 1. The Road That Eats People. You ever drive a stretch of road so long and so quiet that the silence starts to press against your teeth? That's where it starts. There's a place in eastern Kentucky, about 12 miles past the last working gas station on Route 43, where the pavement stops being pavement and starts being something else. The locals call it the Gray Stretch. No lines on the asphalt. No signs. No cell signal. Just a two-lane road that hums even when you're parked. Nobody paves it. Nobody patrols it. And if you believe the folks who still remember when the mines were open, the road moves. But I didn't know that when I drove it. Not the first time. I was on my way to pick up a car for my uncle. He restores muscle cars out near Hazard. And someone had posted a rare '68 Charger body for sale. Dirt cheap. Bring cash in a trailer, the post had said. No funny questions. Which, of course, meant trouble. But Uncle Tim didn't care, and I owed him for getting me off the bottle and out of the pen, so I loaded up the trailer, got directions from the seller over one of those garbled phone calls that sounded like it was coming through a drain, and headed out before dawn. The directions led me past the familiar roads. Past the towns with boarded-up Waffle Houses and empty dollar stores. Eventually, I reached the gas station with the flickering green sign that marked the last place you could still get a real Coke. And from there, I turned onto the Gray Stretch. It looked like any other back road at first. Trees thick on either side. No shoulders. No turn-offs. Just a long, slow ribbon of gray winding through the hills. But after about 30 minutes, I noticed something strange. My odometer had stopped ticking. Still stuck on 11.8 miles. I tapped it. Nothing. Checked my phone. No signal. No GPS. And then I realized the trees weren't changing. Every mile or so, the same cluster appeared, a dead oak leaning over the road, a patch of yellow-green moss clinging to the trunk, and a half-rotted raccoon carcass beside the ditch. I'd passed that raccoon 3 times. Same position. Same blood. Same buzzing of flies. That was the first time I thought about turning around. But the road didn't give me the chance. About the 5th time I passed that tree, I saw something new. A man. Standing in the ditch. Tall. Skinny. In a suit so black it hurt to look at. No hat. No face I could see, just long hands, dangling past his knees. And a spine that arched backward like he was being stretched by wires. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Just stood and watched as I passed. My stomach twisted, like I'd swallowed a handful of nails. By the time I looked in the rear view, he was gone. I stopped the car. Put it in reverse. Sat there. Breathing. Listening. And that's when I realized the road wasn't humming anymore. The car was. Something under the floorboards, vibrating up through the seat, through the steering column, into my fingers. It pulsed, in rhythm with my heartbeat. I killed the engine. The vibration didn't stop. I stepped out. The air was dead. No birds. No bugs, no wind. And the moment I shut the door, the world behind me vanished. Not in a flash or a scream. Just gone. No road behind. Only forward. Only the long man's path. I walked. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. The trees stretched taller. The shadows got thicker. Eventually, I came to a clearing where the road ended, not in dirt, not in grass, but in a drop. An edge. Like the world had been cut off. And there he was. The long man. Bent backward, mouth too wide, arms too long, standing at the precipice. Behind him, nothing. Not black. Not void. Just absence. He turned to face me. His mouth didn't move, but I heard him in my bones. One road. One rider. One toll. He held out his hand. I backed away. He stepped forward. Not walking. Gliding. His toes didn't touch the ground. The trees leaned in. The road hissed beneath my boots. He reached into his own chest, bones cracking, flesh unzipping like old paper, and pulled out a heart. Not human. It blinked. It smiled. And it beat in time with the hum under my feet. Take it. Or stay. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. But the road looped. Every step brought me back to him. Like I was on a treadmill made of asphalt and secrets. Finally, exhausted, I dropped to my knees. The long man stood above me, hands still out. The heart still smiled. I reached out. But something pulled me back. Headlights. A horn. The screech of tires. Then, darkness. I woke up in a ditch. Back on Route 43. The charger was gone. So was the trailer. My phone was cracked and full of water. And my palms? They were covered in writing. Thin black lines, etched like ink into flesh, spelling out the same sentence over and over. One road. One rider. One toll. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've found others. People with stories like mine. People who took the gray stretch and came back different. Some twitch. Some stutter. One girl hasn't spoken since she returned. Only hums that same deep thrum you feel in your feet when something big is coming down the highway. And one man? He didn't come back at all. But they found his boots. Still smoking. Still wet. Miles from the road. I haven't slept more than an hour since. Every time I close my eyes, I see the long man again. Standing at the end of the world. Holding out that smiling heart. Whispering, "Take it. Or stay." I don't know what the toll is. But I think I'm starting to pay it. Part 2. The Toll That Never Stops. 3 nights after I escaped the gray stretch, I woke up with gravel in my bed. Not sand. Not dirt. Gravel. Long, flat pebbles. Cracked with heat. Smelling faintly of burning tires. They were still warm. I tried to tell myself it was a prank. Maybe someone from the shop. But I live alone. No one has a spare key. And the doors were still locked from the inside. There were footprints too. Damp. Narrow. Leading to the side of the bed, and then back to the closet. Not my boots. Barefoot. Toes too long. I stopped working after that. I couldn't focus. Every time I tried to weld, the arc would flicker and spark toward me. Every time I ran a grinder, it would scream, high-pitched and choked, like something trapped in the steel. Uncle Tim told me to take some time off. Said I looked haunted. I didn't correct him. He wasn't far off. The long man started appearing in reflections. First in the rearview mirror of my truck, just a flicker. Then in the TV when it was off. In the glass over the microwave. But he never looked the same. Sometimes he was thinner. Sometimes too wide. Once he was upside down, face slack, limbs crawling like spiders across the top of the mirror. He didn't move. Just watched. Waited. I tried to draw what I remembered from the road. Thought it might help. Didn't even get the proportions right before the pencil snapped in my hand. Then the paper tore itself, 3 clean rips straight down, as though some invisible hand had slashed it from above. Each tear bled black ink. Except it wasn't ink. It was thicker. And it moved. I went to a church the next morning. Not to pray. Just to see if the place would keep the humming away. It didn't. If anything, it got louder. When I sat in the pew, the wood was warm. When I looked at the crucifix, the eyes on the statue bled gravel. A man sat down beside me. Elderly. Pale. Wearing a funeral suit. He turned and said, "I rode that road in '76. Still walk with a limp from it." I didn't respond. He kept talking. "We all take the toll different. For me, it's the limp. For you." He leaned closer. His voice dropped. "I'd wager it's the echo." I turned. He was gone. Just gone. Like he'd never been there. Later that night, I heard footsteps on the roof. Pacing. Back and forth. Heavy, but not hurried. Measured. I loaded my shotgun, went outside, and aimed. No one. But there were tracks in the shingles. Too wide for boots. And every print had 4 toes. The dreams returned. This time, I wasn't standing on the edge of the world. I was buried beneath the road, packed into the concrete like a fossil. My mouth full of exhaust and cinders. My ribs cracked, my spine bent backward, just like his. And above me? Cars drove endlessly. But none of them had drivers. Just mirrors where the faces should be. Every mirror showed me, not as I am now, but as I will be. Longer. Hungrier. Faceless. I woke up with my feet covered in blisters. Even though I hadn't walked anywhere. Even though my boots were still by the door. Even though there were footprints in the living room. Coming from the crawl space. Leading to the bed. And back again. The hum under the floor never stops now. I ripped the vent covers out. Tore up the tiles. Dug into the crawl space with my bare hands. Found nothing. No machines. No wires. Just a heart. Small. Shriveled. Wrapped in cloth. Still beating. I buried it in the woods. Poured gasoline over it. Lit the match. It didn't burn. It just laughed. People say you can leave something behind on that road and never look back. But they don't tell you the road might not leave you. That the toll might not be a thing. That the toll might be you. My shadow has started moving on its own. Sometimes when I turn too fast, it lags behind. Sometimes it reaches for things I don't. Sometimes it whispers. I tried to record it. Left my phone on a tripod overnight, facing the wall. When I played it back, the footage was all black. Except for the final 2 seconds. A face leaned into the lens. Too close. Grinning. And whispered, "One road. One rider. One toll. One becoming." I haven't driven since. But I wake up with gasoline on my hands. The bed smells like rubber and rust. And I think I know what's happening. The long man is building me. Stretching me. Rewriting my shape. Turning me into something the road can use. Another whisper. Another loop. Another preacher of asphalt and bone. I looked in the mirror this morning. And behind me? No house. No trees. Just road. Long and endless and waiting. I think the toll is nearly paid. But the journey? The journey is just beginning. Part 3. The Riders Who Never Leave. The night before I crossed over, I slept in the garage. It wasn't planned. I just found myself there, curled under a greasy tarp, my hands wrapped around the trailer hitch like I was bracing for impact. I had no memory of walking out of the house. But the floorboards inside had begun to breathe, and my bedroom door wouldn't close anymore. It just hung there, mouth-like, smiling in the dark. So I slept in the garage. Or I tried to. But the humming came back. Only this time, it wasn't under my feet. It was inside my chest. And something was knocking. Not on the garage door. From under the hood. I cracked it open around 3:13 a.m. There was no engine anymore. Only gravel. Wet and black and squirming like eggs about to hatch. Lodged in the center, right where the battery should be, sat a heart. Not shriveled like before. Full. Heavy. Grinning. And when I leaned in, I heard the voice. "You've idled long enough, rider. Time to merge." Then the world peeled away. I don't remember the crash. But I woke up at the bottom of a ravine. Twisted metal. Steam. Blood on the windshield in a spiral. But no bones broken. No pain. Just movement. In the trees. Long shadows on all sides. Riders. They didn't speak at first. Just stood along the ditch's edge, staring down. They wore leather jackets that moved like burlap in a storm. Their eyes were headlights, bright, hollow, and endless. Their mouths stretched open and never closed. And beneath their skin, I saw something shimmering, like exhaust. I blinked, and they were closer. I blinked again, and they stood around me. One reached down. His fingers were keys. And when he touched my forehead, I remembered. Everything. The gray stretch. It's not a road. It's a conduit. A living stretch of time and matter that reaches into people and unthreads them. It finds the lonely. The guilty. The ones who go just a little too far past the last gas station. A little too fast toward nowhere. And it pulls them into the in-between. Where the long man waits. Where the riders circle. Where the road is never dry. And nobody drives alone. They took me then. Not with hands, but with gravity. One moment I was lying in the wreck. The next, I was on the road again. But the trees were wrong. They grew upside down. The sky pulsed red. And the road had no end. Only bends. Only loops. And every so often, a figure. Crawling out of the ditch. Staggering. Bleeding. New. The riders do not speak, but I learned their rules. There are 3. Stay on the road. The trees are not trees. Do not swerve for the figures. They were never people. When the long man steps into your lane, honk once and close your eyes. He likes the respect. The others drive forever. Some look normal. Others, not so much. Their cars are grown from bone and flesh. Their tires whisper as they roll. Some leave trails of smoke that spell names in the sky. One drove a rig made entirely of mirrors, and when you looked inside, it reflected a version of yourself that never got away. We don't race. We don't stop. We just ride. Endlessly. Breathing the hum. There are exits, they say. Rumors of off-ramps that lead to almost places. A diner where time doesn't move. A church made of hubcaps and hands. A motel where the vending machine sells memories. But you don't get to choose your stop. The long man does. Sometimes he rides with you. You don't know it at first. But then the glove box starts to bleed. Or the rearview mirror shows him in the back seat, grinning without form. And the humming gets louder. And louder. And you realize your hands aren't your hands anymore. And the wheel is turning itself. I asked one rider once how long he'd been here. He looked at me with those high-beam eyes and said, "I was born on a Tuesday. Died on a Thursday. Been driving since the middle." Then he drove off into a fog that hadn't been there seconds before. There are stories of people who got out. Not many. Most aren't the same when they do. One came back with a face that wouldn't stop melting. Another could only speak in engine sounds. One girl came back mute, but when you put your ear to her chest, you could hear tires skidding and horns screaming. She tried to light herself on fire. Said she wanted to stop idling. Me? I'm still riding. Still circling the bend that always comes back to itself. The toll is memory. The toll is shape. The toll is becoming one more blur in the corner of someone else's road. I think I'm losing my name. I think I'm losing time. And sometimes, when I blink I see you, reading this. And I wonder if you'll see the long man when you pass that turn-off past the old gas station. You won't mean to take it. But your hands might. Your car might. And when you do, when the humming starts, when the trees stop changing, when the same road loops back again, you'll understand. The gray stretch always wants new riders. And now, you're already halfway there. Part 4. The split in the spine of the road. They don't tell you there's a choice. At first, you think the gray stretch is just a trap, a loop, a curse, a sentence to endless motion. And for a while it is. You circle. You ride. You forget what your name sounded like when spoken out loud. But after enough miles, after the mirrors have warped your face and your tires start to pulse like muscle, you come to the split. And when you reach it, the road speaks. Not out loud. Not in words. It speaks through your engine. It began on the 300th loop. Maybe the 3000th. Numbers don't mean much here. But I remember the sky that day. It wasn't red. It was white. Blinding. Heavy. Like the air had teeth. I was driving alone, if you can still call this twitching, humming thing I'd become driving, when I saw it. A sign. Old wood. paint peeled off like sunburnt flesh. It simply read, merge/exit. One word on each side of the split. The road yawned into a fork. Both paths looked identical, gray veins through impossible hills, flanked by trees that never moved. But the feel was different. One side pulled at my stomach. The other pulled at my bones. I slowed. For the first time since I arrived, the wheels obeyed. The air grew still. Even the hum paused, like it wanted me to hear the silence. And then a sound behind me. A scream. Not pain. Not fear. Release. I looked in the mirror and saw myself standing on the road behind the car, smiling, bleeding from the mouth, eyes black as tire rubber. And he said, "Choose, Micah, or we'll choose for you." I turned toward the merged path first, and the moment my tires touched it, I saw everything. The riders ahead of me, mouths fused to steering wheels, bones wired into the frame, their hearts glowing behind dashboards. No longer people, just instruments. They had merged. Their wheels were ribs. Their brakes were thought. They drove not by force, but by belief. They were the road, and they loved it. They whispered through their horns, laughed in bursts of static. One opened his window and spilled out 1,000 teeth onto the asphalt like confetti. And the long man? He rode with them. At the front. A living semi-truck made of writhing mirrors, crowned with exhaust and flame. His eyes twin headlights that never dimmed. He led the merged. He owned them. I backed up, veered toward exit. And that path was cold, dark, narrower than the other. I felt alone for the first time in eons. No riders, no sound, just a winding trail of ash and broken signs, with warnings I couldn't read. The road itself whispered, "This way leads back." I followed it. Not because I wanted to, because I remembered. A name, a house, a life before wheels and oil and lungs filled with smog. The road narrowed further. Soon I wasn't driving. I was crawling. Metal screeched. My limbs cracked. I scraped my chest along the pavement like a dying animal. And still, I kept going. Because somewhere ahead I saw light. And beyond it, a door. It was wood. Plain. Painted white. A porch light flickered above it. I reached for the knob with what was left of my hand. And I heard him. The long man. Not behind me. Inside me. Go back. The ride is smoother than the walk. I turned the knob, opened the door, and I was home. Not metaphorically. Home. My garage. Dusty. Quiet. The air thick with the scent of oil and mold. My truck was parked beside me. Keys in the ignition. Not a scratch on it. The clock on the wall blinked 3:13 a.m. I fell to my knees. Cried. Felt human again. But when I looked down at my shadow, it was still lagging behind. Still humming. Still smiling. The exit comes with a price. You return. But not all of you. The ride carves you out. Leaves a piece of you on the stretch. Some become riders. Some become road. Some, like me, we become exits. I hear them now. People pulling over outside my house, asking for directions. Walking too far past the last lit street, listening to the hum in the gravel. And sometimes, just sometimes, they come in, and they see the road behind my eyes. I try to warn them, try to speak, but my tongue only whispers tire treads and engine rot. I hand them the keys. They smile and drive, because that's the final truth of the stretch. You don't choose the exit, it chooses you. Part 5, the final mile. They say if you listen closely at 3:13 a.m., you can still hear tires on pavement in a town with no cars. A low, constant hum under the soil, like a long breath that never ends. But that's not breath. That's the road. Still alive. Still growing. Still hungry. I tried to live after coming back. Really. I boarded up the garage. Scrubbed the house clean of oil and gravel. Ripped the keys from the ignition. Even crushed my phone when I caught a reflection of the long man blinking through the cracked screen. But the toll never stops. You don't just leave the gray stretch. You drag it with you. I started finding mile markers in my backyard. Short, rusted posts with no numbers. Just deep grooves that oozed heat when you touched them. At night, they rearranged themselves. One morning, I stepped out and found them forming a perfect circle around my truck. The next, they spelled my name. The air grew thick, like rubber. Each breath tasted like hot asphalt after rain. And then came the knocks. Not at the front door. Not the window. From beneath. From the crawl space. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Like something with wheels dragging itself up through the foundation. One knock for every mile I'd driven on that godforsaken road. I don't leave the house anymore. I don't eat much. I don't sleep unless the hum stops. Which it never does. And sometimes, when the walls sweat and the ceiling pulses, I feel like I'm idling in place, even though I haven't touched the keys in weeks. Sometimes I find myself standing in the garage, covered in soot, gripping the wheel of a car that shouldn't exist. A frame of ribs. Tires of flesh. An engine that whispers prayers I don't remember learning. They call it the final mile. The long man's last offer. You can ignore the signs. You can break the mirrors. You can throw away the keys. But if you hear that knock, the one that comes after all the others, if you answer it, he'll let you drive the final stretch. And if you make it to the end, he gives you a gift. Not salvation. Not freedom. Something worse. I answered the knock last night. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe I always knew I would. The basement was full of fog. Warm. Gray. Breathing. The floor had cracked open in the center, and from it rose a road. Not a path. Not metaphor. A literal piece of highway. Glowing red veins pulsing in the cracks. It hummed with the voice of every rider who'd ever screamed but didn't brake. My car was waiting. Slick with sweat. Alive. I climbed in. The door closed itself. The engine started. The headlights blinked once. And the road unrolled before me. This was not the gray stretch. This was something beneath it. Something deeper. This was the vein of the long man himself. twisting through a landscape made of broken signs and crumbling overpasses, endless license plates fluttering like leaves in the wind. Above, a sky of exhaust pipes and blinking eyes. Below, nothing. Just drop. Just forever. He was waiting at the end. Standing in the center of the road, his arms too long, his smile too wide. His body a blur of mirrors and meat, of headlights and screams. He didn't move, didn't speak, just reached into his chest, pulled out that heart, the one that smiled. Still beating, he held it out. This is your turn, rider. One toe left. Just say yes. I looked at my hands. They weren't hands anymore. They were keys. And I remembered something he never told me. Something all riders eventually learn. The final toll isn't what you give. It's what you become. The last mile is a loop. And someone has to be the road. I said yes. Now, I am beneath you. I am the hum in your tires, the twitch in your wheel, the shadow you pass that isn't a tree. Every time your GPS reroutes with no warning. Every time your radio hisses at the edge of reception. Every time you see the same stretch of road again and again. I'm there, guiding you, whispering, waiting. And when you take that turn past the old gas station, when you drive too far past the last porch light, when the lines on the pavement stop making sense, you'll hear me, in the engine, in the wheels, in your bones, whispering, one road, one rider, one toll, one becoming. And when you reach the end, don't thank me. Just open your chest. The long man waits, and his road never ends. But if you hear the knock, you're not done yet.